Welcome to Shop Squad's Now You Know, a podcast that brings you compelling conversations about today's technical training resources. For information, visit shopsquadonline.com. Philip, we've been talking a lot about the shop owner level, the service advisor level involved with Shop Squad. Technician level, you're at this training level with technicians on a regular basis. What kinds of questions are you being asked when you're in these training sessions?
Various ones. For our technical training, we have different classes such as the motor technology, the ignition, coil unplug diagnostics, the cam and crank diagnostics, which is semi-advanced, the domestic and import drivability classes, and then our most latest one is air-fuel ratio sensor classes. So some frequently asked questions is, how do I maximize my scan tool data PIDs before I invest in a scope or additional equipment and troubleshooting? And I like that question because the answer is simple. Attend more of our classes. That's what it's focused on. Before we introduce any specialty tests, which is required because we, as you can see, we're a sensor specialist, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to dial that down. You need a scope and to troubleshoot most of these sensors today, or even to verify. Now, can you use scan data? Yes, we will show you, and we will teach you how to maximize that. We don't want to close the door of your furthering education and being able to scope. And the next question that I would get to is, how do I start out? Is there any elementary level scopes that I could purchase, or should I approach my shop owner to say, hey, won't you get a scope for the class? I would say yes to both. If you can invest in that, do so, or ask the shop owner.
That's an interesting topic, because some people might think, oh, that's too advanced. Some people might think that's too basic. And yet the shop owner, if they need to make that investment in shop tooling, that's critical to their business and to being more successful moving forward.
Absolutely, especially if they want to be considered the ignition specialist and a sensor specialist. That's why we theme our training classes along with that, right? Because at the end of the day, perception is reality. The customer sees you as the specialist, whether you recognize that or not, right? So we want to help you get as close as you can when it comes to that. And let's take this to either further level. When we visit community colleges with automotive programs or technical institutes with automotive programs, I'm even challenging them where their curriculum are built out. Obviously, it's a syllabus that's based off of, accredited institutions that guide them, but we have to start thinking differently. Our engine class should no longer be the typical engine class where you're taking engines apart, learn about it. We want to be able to look at that through a different set of lenses, which involving using an oscilloscope with a pressure transducer. So now you're learning how the engine is supposed to operate. Now let's start showing them immediately how you can visually see that on a scope, making that connection before they even reach engine performance electrical class. This is where, as an industry, we have to start adapting and introducing the next generation and those that are learning this in a new way. Now we fast forward to those that are already in shop. They have no choice. It's needed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Let's talk briefly about a typical Shop Squad training session. What's involved? What are they, when they come into the room, they're looking around at other technicians who are there obviously for the same kind of reasons they are. What can they expect? What's going to happen? What can they expect?
One thing they could expect is not your typical training class.
Okay.
And being a manager of this training development program, I'm like a kid in a candy store because I get to implement the very pain points I had coming up as a technician. Even on the OE side, it's typical. You have to mentally prepare yourself to sit down for 2 to 4 hours when you're used to standing, moving about, being interactive. So I try to incorporate that, and I challenge my team to incorporate a lot of visuals and be interactive. It's not just us talking to them. It's asking them questions such as, what type of scan tools are you working with? Is there any other additional equipment? I challenge them. ladies and gentlemen, if we can't even say what type of scan tools we're working with, we're in trouble. I'm glad we're in a training environment because we're going to learn today, right? So that's the type of environment I try to create, open it up. So that's what these classes are pretty much based on. And it's not your typical training class. It's a lot more interactive.
So you're not expecting these training sessions to support what the attendees already know. You're not going to make them feel good about how smart they are. You're going to help them learn what they don't know and how to be better at their job.
Exactly. And I always start off, I'm not the expert in the room. I just have more time to research, development, and play and create scenarios, right? So I challenge myself by walking through case studies, and some of them that we develop in-house, most of them are sheared from those that are dietechnicians and fellow educators doing the whole mobile thing, right? Because they're right in front of those most difficult problems, and they put a monkey wrench in what we're learning and reading. So capturing those, we can't all do it ourselves, right? We have to speak to unique individuals in the field that say, hey, listen, yeah, you could read an information database of how this is supposed to work, but this is what this particular problem showed. We want to capture that, research it ourselves, and put it in a digestible format so that it's an awareness piece for techs as they develop in their learning paths. And we look for ways where it could be useful to your A technician, very beneficial to your B and B plus, and also challenging for your C and C plus in order for them to see the roadmap of what they need to know in order to fully understand that system.
And you encourage attendees to bring their problems?
Yes, I love that, because now can we solve them at break time and at the end? Not as much. But if you have something that's similar as we're working through a particular case study, please share it. Give us all the data. Provide the steps you took, and I'll use that within the classroom setting or the training setting. And that's another thing. The setting is unique to the audience, but we want to make sure that we incorporate those as much as we can, because we do have a set amount of time, but I love incorporating one or two within that. And with the classroom setting too, I just want to touch on, I like to have a U-shaped setting where everyone could see each other. Okay. I literally hate classroom settings, so excuse that, because I don't like people seeing the backs of other people's heads. I want them to see the reactions. I want to see others taking notes, and it's contagious, right? Raising their hand, looking at facial expressions, things of that nature. So that's what's incorporated with our training class.
Nobody wants to sit in the front of the room. Nobody wants to ask questions, even though everyone in the room probably has the same question.
Right, exactly. That's why I love U-shape, because there's no front of the room, right? It's either the center or the sides, right? And so there's certain dynamics in psychology that goes into this that we try to utilize in order to bring out the best experience. We want this to be a Natera experience. Okay. They know NGKL brands, they know NTKL brands. We want them to understand that we're here to challenge ourselves to help them be more effective and streamline the diagnostic process within their means. And if they see that they can't do that, we encourage them, or at least make them more proficient in on what tools to buy to do so.
Challenging yourself has to be opening up the conversation to include the dialogue between techs.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a lot of dialogue and challenging too, between techs too, that we like to facilitate and open up that door to. So
maybe someone else already has the answer to the question that that Joe is looking for over here.
Yes, exactly. And we make those connections, and I love it. I wish I could film some of it, right? Because that's what we want to establish when we have these in-person training sessions. And even when we do the webinars, we try to install more polls to get a pulse check of who's in the room. And then we'll stop and start asking questions and seeing what type of answers we're getting back before we continue. So those are the different ways in which the Natera training through our NTK and NGK brands are being conducted.
So it sounds like the in-person shop squad training sessions are pretty informative, pretty exciting. How can our listeners learn more?
Well, they can learn more by listening to these podcasts. Very simple by Babcock's. and also going to shopsquadonline.com. Also reaching out through your various part suppliers. We are part of most of their training programs. So find out when we're going to be in the neighborhood soon as well, but go directly to shopsquadonline.com to find out what training we have, how can you participate in a dialogue, how can you most importantly receive email tips, tricks, and insights as well.
You know, more and more training is going to be vital to this industry. I'd like to thank my guest, Philip Austin from Natera, formerly known as NGK, for joining us today. As Philip said, check out Shop Squad for more information, more exciting training opportunities. Thanks for joining us.